Hello and welcome to our mini webinar about using indexes for local history research. We have over 60 fantastically useful indexes on our website. Today we'll be looking at them in a different way, how you can use them to research a place rather than a person. Nearly 40 of the indexes can be searched by place in some way, even the indexes that are really about people. Here they are. They cover a really wide range of subjects. So everything from Aboriginal people in the Register of Aboriginal Reserves through to lots of convict records, letters to the Colonial Secretary in a range of different ways, through to criminal records. There's also a lot of indexes about occupations, things like the Nurses Index, the Police Service Registers, the Publicans Licences, and kind of the reverse of that, the Jailmates and Prisoners Photo Index. Things like the depasturing licences and the land grant registers and the gold lease registers will really give you a sense of place. I've included the naturalisation index to remind me to tell you that while you can search by native place, it will be the place that the person came from. So you'd get a result for Sweden, but not a result for Dubbo. There's a whole swathe of soldier settlement records, which are about the closest settlement and soldier settlement records, and we'll look at those later. And also records again about land, the Surveyor General's letters, and field books and Crown plans. So let's look at our website. This is www.records.nsw.gov.au. There's a link here under quick links to the online indexes. They're arranged alphabetically, and you can just scroll down and look at the topics that we suggest, and there are also lots of see also references. So if you haven't thought of exactly the term that we have, you'll be able to find out how to find them. The indexes vary a lot in size, from just a few hundred names to tens of thousands of names. So let's get started. I'm going to start by looking at the index to the Register of the Bubonic Plague, which covers 1900 to 1908. So the indexes will always list the terms you can search for. So you can search by a town, like Kempsey. So one of the things that this index will give you is perhaps a sense of something that happened in your area that you weren't aware of. So Kempsey was subject to the bubonic plague in that early 20th century. And it gives you details to go further. I'd also mention that this register is completely digitised and available on our website. So if you search the website for bubonic plague, that'll take you to the digitised version. The next index I want to look at is under business and company records. This is a fantastic index. It's an index to the registers of firms that cover 1903 to 1922. It's like a stroll down the main street of a town. It's that good. So here we're going to search for Cobar. And it brings up a whole range of entries. So down the bottom, it tells you how many pages, and it's always set at 10 entries per page, how many pages of results you get. And there are also buttons that allow you to export the results into any of these formats, or you can print them. But it'll just print what's on the screen. So go back up here, click again in Cobar, and you'll just get one single page. I tend to export in Excel. And that brings up all of those results. So even just looking at the nature of the businesses of people that were registered, and there will have been other businesses in town in Cobar, gives you a feel for what was happening in Cobar in that time period. So you can just sort. You may find that there are some records that are not by in Cobar. So you'll find some like these two, whether it's the Cobar Street in Sydney. Just delete that row. And we can sort again by the nature of the business. So there's at least 2 businesses that are selling or perhaps leasing bicycles. So it's a thing of the times. There's the sort of businesses you'd expect: butchers, butchering businesses, lots of merchants, general store keepers, grain and produce commission agents, because Cobar, of course, is in a rural area. And again, graziers, reflecting that. The sorts of things you would expect in a reasonable town. Hotel keepers, it's got a jeweller and a watchmaker. There are mining and smelting companies. This is a mining town after all. There's a newspaper, there's a picture show, photographic and phonograph and records, stationery and cool drinks. So again, it's of the time, but also of the nature of the size of the town. You can hire a car. There are refreshment rooms, wheelwrights and blacksmiths, and also at least 2 wine merchants. So quite a sophisticated town. You can sort by the place of business. So clearly Barton Street is one of the streets that has a lot of businesses in it, as is Lindsley, but I think Marshall looks like it's probably the main town, the main street in Cobar. The next index we'll look at is the Bankruptcy Insolvency Indexes. So these are really 2 records which show what happens to a person's estate when they're unable to pay their creditors and are required to undergo a legal process that basically results in the liquidation of their estate. Between them, they cover 1842 through to 1929, so a 90-year block that you could look and see what was happening in regards to this in the town that you're interested in. Just going to have a look at bankruptcy first, so 1888 to 1829. And look at the town of Wentworth down in the southwest. Again, scroll down. Convert it to 1 page. And then export it as Excel. Yep. Deliberately chose Wentworth because you'll see there are people whose surname are Wentworth, who have Wentworth as a middle name. And there's also, of course, the town of Wentworth. So you can do quite a lot of sorting, or you may need to do quite a lot of sorting, just to make sure that you're getting just the areas that you want. I'm going to take up both of those rows and the one for Glebe. So this might take you a little while, but it's worth doing that and just taking out the Wentworth Fall entries. So you end up with a smaller list. So what this gives you is a list of the people in that period, 1888 to 1929, who became bankrupt. Range of occupations, so that's where that comes in. So either people whose occupations were impacted by the conditions at the time, or perhaps weren't the greatest of business people. The dates don't sort particularly well, but you can sort by the file number, and that gives you a by time indication. So note there's quite a few in the end of the 1890s. There was a depression in New South Wales in the 1890s. And also that you'll see that there is a range of places both in and out of Wentworth. Similarly, you can go to the Insolvency Index. covering 1842 to 1887, and do the same process. This is the spreadsheet that I prepared earlier for Burwood, and I've taken out any of the places that are not actually in the suburb of Burwood in Sydney. Again, obviously these are not all of the occupations, but it gives you that idea of the sorts of things that were happening in the place that you're interested in. You'll see some results here. You think, well, what's Mullumaloo doing there? And that's because the person was formerly of Burwood. And it's almost as you'd expect. If you've undergone an insolvency or bankruptcy process, you may not be able to continue living where you were living. Huge range of occupations: assistant analysts, boarding house keepers, carriers, chemists and druggists, clerk in the Holy Order, drapers, lots of drapers, gentlemen, music teacher, railway porter, tanner and courier, teachers, and I think this is possibly the first woman we've seen, a widow who became insolvent. Similarly, you can sort by the file number, and it will give you that picture over time of whether there's increasing or decreasing numbers of people becoming insolvent. There was also a bad period during the early 1880s. Our records finished before the Great Depression, and you would need to look at the National Archives for those records. I wanted to look then at one of the occupation-based indexes. So the chemists and pharmacists, so it covers 1876 to 1920. Looking at Moree in the northwest of the state. Sorry. Here we go. So you can see that there's been a number of chemists and druggists, but looking at the date range, that there probably hasn't always been a registered pharmacist, druggist, or chemist in the town. The qualifications differ quite significantly. It's still something to think about. Were there people carrying out these professions in the area that you're interested in? Possibly the most amazing index for a whole range of reasons, but also for this sort of research, is the Deceased Estate Index. So this is the index to the files where the government decided whether or not and how much death duty they would charge on an estate. The index online covers 1880 to 1939 and has literally tens of thousands of entries in it. The deceased estate files go up to 1958, but that index is not available online. So you can just search the index in the same way we've been doing. So you could search place. This is the result from that. So you can see a very substantial list. Where you get occupation is from the remarks column. So it's not there in every case, but there's enough to make it worthwhile. So two things to bear in mind. These are for people that died. And so you will get lots of entries about retired bank managers, carriers, for instance. And this may have been their profession at the time of their death, but may not necessarily have been the profession for the whole of their life. But I think it probably is a pretty good reflection of Blacktown in that period, 1880 through to 1940. There would have been dairy farmers and farmers during that time period, but also the sorts of occupations that, so this is the date of death, gives you an idea of the time frame. librarians, market gardeners, poultry farmers. A wide range, and also lots of women by this stage. And the final index we'll look at is one of the soldier settlement indexes. This is a different sort of index. It covers the files about the transfer of land ownership originally obtained under the Closer Settlement Acts from 1901 to 1907, and there are a few, and a Returned Soldiers Act in 1916. So these were set up to help people to get land in areas where there were previously large properties. They cover roughly 1910 through to about 1950. And you can just search by a place. And these are the entries for Bombala. And I think it just gives you that picture. Here we go. Of the fact that there was soldier settlement and closer settlement happening in the area that you're interested in, the people that were involved, where they were living, which may not always necessarily be in the town, the parish and the county, and the settlement purchase area. And there, as I said, there is a whole collection of these indexes, so worth pursuing all of them. And the dates when the transfers and files were happening. So a picture of the land in that area. So this shows you the huge range of ways that you can use the indexes, many of which are indexes about people, to find out what those people were doing and what was happening in the areas of local history. Thanks.